Hello, everyone. For today's review, I want to talk about one of my all-time favorite films, Michael Clayton. This film stars George Clooney, Tom Wilkinson, Tilda Swinton, written and directed by Tony Gilroy, who's wrote so many great films over the years: The Cutting Edge, Armageddon, The Devil's Advocate, the Bourne series, Extreme Measures. This film was actually his directorial debut, and it's a shame he hasn't done more because, wow, he was excellent. He knocked it out of the park. I love this film. I can't say enough good things about it. I'm happy I finally own it. I'll be going back to it and watching it often. Film gets better every time I watch it. I said in my George Clooney intro that From Dusk Till Dawn was probably my favorite Clooney performance, but it becomes more and more debatable with every time I watch this film. He is excellent in this film. I can't picture anyone else playing this role as well as he did. Just excellent all around, excellent cast. The pacing is excellent. The premise of this film is nothing that original. There's been films before where, shady corporations have been in legal battles with defendants and all the stuff that goes with that. But this film just carries it out flawlessly. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. And this review will contain spoilers. If you haven't seen this film, check it out. You will not regret it. And I want to make a good review here and just sit back and talk about why I love this film. So, again, the cast. I can't say enough how great this cast is. Tilda Swinton. I mean, I've seen her in a few other things over the years, but this is her best role, in my opinion. Her descent into madness throughout this film is just something to behold. And it makes your skin crawl almost how real this film feels at times. It's one of them films that starts off where they show you the end kind of at the beginning, and then they kind of put the pieces together into what happened. And sometimes films like that, they can, I don't know, sometimes I can get lost in films like that. But for some reason, this film, it doesn't do it like that. It just carries it out so well. And the way it introduces the characters, the way it develops the characters is just perfect. And, and so George Clooney plays this corporate fixer at this law firm. He's going through a bunch of stuff in his own life. He invested in this restaurant that fell through. His brother, he went into the restaurant with his brother. His brother's like an addict or something. He went AWOL, ended up losing all this money. He used to be a cop, and then he became a lawyer, but now he's just essentially nothing. He's just going around kind of doing all this, how do you say it? Just doing all this grunt work. They use the word janitor and bagman, and he's kind of almost like losing his self-respect. Like everybody just kind of refers to him as the cleanup guy, and you can just imagine what he's going through. I guess he had his own problems with gambling at the tables and betting on sports, so he's just going through some really hard times himself. And just his job, everything, his character, like I said, he just plays it off so well. Then his friend Walter, a lawyer who's been working on this case with this weed killer, he comes into his own, grows a conscience, realizes that essentially what he's doing is wrong. I don't want to say he falls in love with this defendant, Anna, but he has a great admiration for her, and he just wants to help her. He no longer wants to work for this company, defend this company. He's been doing it for years, and he knows he's wrong. They have this memo that shows that the company knew that this weed killer was toxic and would cause cancer, but they signed off on it and used it anyway. And he just realizes that what he's doing is what is wrong. So he goes crazy. I guess he had a problem in the past with a mental disorder, bipolar or whatever. He goes crazy, starts taking his clothes off. It's kind of how the movie starts to unfold. George Clooney knows him. They send George Clooney out to Milwaukee to bring him back down to earth, get him back on his medicine. He goes out there, and George Clooney's just thinking, okay, he's just off his medicine. But he realizes Walter is essentially, he's off his medicine, but he's not crazy. He's just fed up with doing what he's doing. And there's a good quote where he says, what is the exact quote? I should have wrote it down, but he writes on the hotel wall before he escapes. He writes down, "Look beyond the madness," or something like that. which essentially it's like, yeah, I might be going a little bit crazy because I'm off my meds, but you know what I'm doing is right. And so George Clooney's chasing him around. Still, all this other stuff going on in his life. He owes his people money, and he's trying to do everything he can to get the money. There's some mildly funny parts in this film as well. I'll get into them later, but it does have a certain dark humor to it at times, which kind of just keeps a little bit lighthearted as well at times, because it's a very dark movie. But there's a couple moments in there that do kind of, make you giggle just a little bit. So George Clooney comes back to New York now. Everybody on the firm's cracking down on him. They're, you got to get Walter under control. So he's looking for Walter. He's making these phone calls, telling him, like, Walter, call me. Like, this is who we are. This is what we signed up for. And he's saying it, but you can just kind of tell that he's really not even believing it. He's just, with everything he's going through, this is just his job, It's the way he looks at it. Just kind of a dark approach to the world. I'm sure people that have seen this film know what I mean. Like, he realizes that what his friend is doing is right, but he's not in a position to really do anything about it at the time. And then again, you see Tilda Swinton's character just the whole film talking to herself, just going, getting darker and darker, doing anything. The film doesn't mention it, but you just get this vibe that being a woman in such a high position of power, and all the board executives, her boss is a male, you just get the vibe that she's just under this enormous amount of pressure to make everything work, and she's literally willing to do anything, including murder, to protect the integrity of the company, to win this lawsuit. So she's, she has no conscience, essentially, for what's going on with Walter. She's just, she wants him under control now. And when they realize they're tapping his phones, Walter ends up finding out they're tapping his phones and essentially sends a message to them letting them know what he's about to do. They find out he's essentially helping the defendants build a case against the firm. So Tilda Swinton's character has him murdered. And this film, this is what I mean about the realism of this film that makes your skin crawl, because the scene where Walter's murdered and the two henchmen come in and inject them with the chemical or the drug that, like, paralyzes them, and then put him on the ground, take his sock off, inject him with something else between his toes. Like, wow. You just watching that scene that's happened before in real life. And you just wonder, like, how many times has that happened? Like, how many people have been taken out like this without, because what can you really do? They don't inspect like that. They don't look between the toes and stuff. And apparently afterwards, when George Clooney goes and the police are telling him about it, they're like, oh, we found pills all over the place. It was a suicide. But George Clooney right away, he knows it wasn't a suicide, because he just knows that this Walter guy was on a mission to expose the company. And so George Clooney's never really buying that. Even though the police are like, oh yeah, it's just cut and dry, it's a suicide. So from this point on, one funny scene in this film, I will mention, made me laugh anyway. George Clooney, he's in an office, and he needs 80 grand, essentially. He asked this guy Marty, another good character in the movie, who plays his role excellent. He asked this Marty guy for money, lets him know what's going on with the restaurant. He owes some people money. The Marty guy ends up giving him a bonus of 80 grand to cover everything. This other guy comes in who just kind of plays, a cynical prick. Comes in and tells him, like, oh, we need you to sign a confidentiality agreement and make it bulletproof, retroactive. Like, you're coming in here, you're trying to shake us down. And then he's like, hey, look, Barry, if I'm trying to shake anybody down, it wouldn't be Marty, it would be you, and it would be for a lot more than 80 grand. I mean, again, just George Clooney acting, it makes me laugh when I see it every time. Just, again, the secrets of somebody like this must know and just, find it hard to sleep. And then he has a son throughout the film, and it shows him talking to his son, and he's trying to give his son these talks, these speeches about having heart, and but then again he realizes what he's doing as well. So you can just feel that tension between him and his son. Like, he wants to do right, but then he realizes that he's just not in a position to really say anything because of what he is. And yeah, so they kill Walter. George Clooney goes into his house, breaks in, looking around. The cops come in, they arrest him. But then he really realizes that they are being watched, because he realizes that as soon as he went in, the cops were there in no time. So he feels like the house was being watched. He's being watched. So he's starting to, again, realize what's going on, And he's just putting the pieces together. And going back to the beginning of the film, which I didn't mention, about how it shows kind of the end at the beginning, he was in Walter's apartment, he finds a book. And in the book, it has a tree and a horse. And beginning of the film, he's driving, he sees this tree and these horses, and he gets out and he walks up, and it looks very similar to the book. And as he's walking up on this hill at this tree and seeing these horses, his car blows up. And that's where it starts in the beginning. But going back forward now, he gets his money, and he pays off his debt, and essentially I feel like at that point in the film, he was ready to just let it go. He found the memos that Walter had that had the main CEO signing off on the chemical. And he goes to the office with one, but then they just give him his money. He doesn't mention it. And at that point, I feel like, okay, he was just going to be bought off and keep doing what he was doing. So it shows him he goes and starts playing poker again, which he apparently hasn't done in a long time, with some of the money he had left over from the 80 grand. And they call him again on some assignment. Some guy up in, I think they said Westchester, New York, had a hit and run. So he goes up there to clean up, the mess. And he doesn't know it, but people plant a car bomb in his car at the time. And that goes back to the beginning of the movie. So you see how they planted the bomb. So he goes up there, he talks to this guy, and he kind of does have a different approach than you think he would. He just kind of tells him straight up, like, look, I can't help you, You need a defense attorney. Essentially, you're screwed, like, straight up. So he does have more of a cynical approach. He really doesn't have patience for this guy. Gets in his car, starts driving, and sees that tree, gets out. The guy's following him with this remote control device, blow his car up. It takes him a couple, George Clooney's such a good actor. When this scene happens, just the look on his face, takes him a couple seconds to put it together, and he realizes they tried to kill him. He runs down to the car, throws his wallet, his watch, his phone, the cell phone in there, and then runs away. And his brother's a cop. But at this point in the film, and it mentions that throughout the film, but at this point in the film, you still don't realize really what's going to happen. I remember the first time I seen this film, I'm just like, holy shit, what's he going to do? So he runs off, and later on, they announce, the people around the firm, they're like, oh, Michael Clayton just died in a car bomb. So it shows the Marty guy, he's all upset. And, Tilda Swinton, she arranged it because he became a little bit of a problem. He was starting to find out too much. So she arranged him to be killed. And the last act of this film is just excellent. And, man, I can't even put into words how great the end of this film is, and how the first time I saw this film, just like I said, how on the edge of my seat, just living in the moment of this film when I saw it for the first time. And even now, it still just almost sends chills. This final act where George Clooney goes to the firm, he has the memo in hand. Tilda Swinton's character comes out, she sees him, she's shocked, and he's like, oh yeah, Walter's walking around here too. And they have this and she's like, oh, the memo doesn't mean anything. And he's like, oh, really? Like, I don't think the checks have been signed yet. Like, it still does. And he's like, I know you tried to kill Walter. And then she kind of tries to dismiss him. Then he's like, you tried to kill me? Me? I sold Walter out for 80 grand in a 3-year contract. And you tried to kill me? I was the easiest one in your problems. I'm the bag man. I'm the janitor. Just the way George Clooney's just going off. And he tells her he wants $10 million. And she's like, $10 million, where am I going to get $10 million? Then he starts going off more about, like, I know you killed Walter. I got this proof. And then she's like, okay. And then her boss comes out. And then she's like, okay, $10 million is like, in a bank of my choice. Say it. Say it. And then so she's like, yes, in a bank of your choice. And then, her boss is coming out like, well, who are you? Come on, we need you. Who are you? So there's this from him. Her character, she's just freaking out. George Clooney's just going off on her, just attacking her. And then he just tells her, like, you're fucked. And then she's like, what? And then he pulls his phone out. And he's like, let me take a picture, too. Snaps a picture, turns around and just starts walking away. And she just falls to the ground as he's walking away because she realizes what happened. And, like, as a member of the audience, like, I fell to the ground with her during the scene. Like, my heart just dropped during the scene because it was just so powerful, just so well acted between both of them. Like, the chemistry they had in that scene to make that scene work was just amazing. And as George Clooney's walking off, his brother comes up, and George Clooney's like, did you get all that? And he's like, yeah, I got it. And he's like, all right, stay close. And then George Clooney just leaves the building, goes out to a cab, and gets in, sits there, hands the cabbie $50, and is like, just drive. I want $50 worth. And I mean, wow, just the ending of this film. Just this whole film in general, but just wow. The ending of this film was just one of the best third acts in any film that I can remember. Love the ending of this film. Love this film. I could go on and on about this. What are we at? 17 minutes. It's already longer than I can make my reviews. But for this film, I wanted to go on a little bit longer. I might actually come back to this film and review it again one day in the future. Just because it's a great film. If I ever make a list of my favorite George Clooney films, that's something, it'll definitely be very high up on the list, if not number one. Love this film. Great acting. If I had to rate it, I would say 5 out of 5. I mean, it's everything, and I can understand why maybe some people won't like it as much as I do. But for me, this is just everything in a film that I like. It's a thriller. It doesn't have any nudity or anything in it. Not that I mind that, but just it's clean in that regard. It doesn't have any gore. It doesn't rely on any cheap thrills to keep you interested in the film. It's just pure suspense, pure atmosphere, drama, just all blended together so well. It's just a clean thriller. I could just go on and on. I'm going to go ahead and end my review here, but yeah. Michael Clayton, one of my favorite films. One of my favorite George Clooney films, arguably my favorite. Can't say enough good things about this film. Check it out if you haven't seen it, but if you watch this review, you probably have. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching.